What is the evolutionary reason why women want to be skinny? Let's talk about it today on this episode of Christian Date Coach. Let's hit it. What's up, everybody? My name is Dr. Phoenix Singh. I want to warmly welcome you to this episode of Christian Date Coach. As always, I appreciate your time, and it's a blessing to be able to have you share with me here today. Please do feel free, if you enjoy our content, to subscribe to our channel and also hit that bell so you get notifications every time that we put up new original content. Feel free to comment below in terms of what you think about this video or any of the other videos on our channel. At the same time, if you guys have any suggestions for future videos, we'd love to hear them as well, and you can also follow me on these social media accounts. So let's jump right in. Had somebody who was a client of mine, and she's a young lady, she's 27, somebody who is incredibly intelligent, who is in law school right now, is going to be very successful. She's very conscientious in terms of being a very diligent, hardworking person, has a very bright future ahead of her, without a doubt. One thing that she was talking to me about at dinner the other night was about how, she feels very challenged right now because she is really, busting her butt in school, right? Having a hard time. It's very fulfilling, but it's law school. It's not meant to be easy, right? And at the same time, she struggles with simultaneously wanting to start a family, wanting to meet the right guy for her, wanting to get married, and these sorts of things. And to be honest with you, I think she's quite hard on herself in terms of her looks overall, but especially in terms of her weight. And she was asking me, why is it that women seem to want to be skinny? And is this something that's kind of just in the US? Is this a cross-cultural thing? What is it? And so I wanted to make sure to be able to kind of get an answer that, per usual, is based on the research literature, and at the same time, hopefully, is a little bit illuminating, right? And so what you see in the peer-reviewed research literature is that the ideal in terms of women's shape, as it were, body shape, right? So not only is it a 7 to 10 waist-to-hip ratio, but if you ask men's universal cross-cultural first choice in body type is being curvy and medium weight, right? Now, obviously, the definition of medium weight could be all over the place, and studies really differ on that, right? But it's never somebody who kind of has a particularly low BMI, and it's not somebody who has a particularly high BMI. Now, BMI stands for body mass index, and you guys know as well as I do. So, for example, I lift, so in terms of lifting weight, it doesn't take into consideration all kinds of things. And of course, one of the things it doesn't take into consideration is the amount of muscle mass. This is why you can have guys who are incredibly lean, incredibly low body fat, but they have, above normal, sometimes even obese level BMIs. So BMI isn't exactly, it's a useful kind of shorthand, I believe. But of course, it's not kind of the be-all, end-all in terms of measures, okay? But of course, it's very helpful in terms of having something that's kind of an objective scale, an objective number to kind of go by, at least in terms of measurement, right? So what you see is that in terms of individuals being underweight, so women being underweight, this can be a proxy for different things. So remember that, back in the day, we're talking hunter-gatherer times, right? Kind of early Homo sapiens and these things, right? What, you would end up seeing is that anybody who was underweight, the likelihood is that they were in a kind of a very stressful situation, such that they couldn't get a sufficient amount of food, for instance, right? Maybe they, were at war with a rival tribe, or, we used to be nomadic. So, whoever the herd was that we were following at the time, the herd was kind of thinning out. There wasn't enough food for everybody, etc. But even, these days, same thing, being underweight, it's probably for very different reasons, of course, but it can lead to temporary infertility, right? It can lead to just physically, right, to womb shrinkage. It can lead to, stopping of one's period, right? So a lack of menstruation. And also, all these things combined to a slowdown of the sex drive of women, right, being underweight. And so it's one of these things where that is also perceived to be as unattractive. It's kind of like a U-shaped curve, like a parabolic curve, right, in terms of perceived attractiveness, right? Overall, trust me on this one. I know a lot of men, right, who are into women who are, kind of almost like an emaciated model look, kind of like a New York model look type people. And I have a lot of friends who are, very interested in women who tend to be larger in terms of their BMI, and certainly neither is wrong, right? But again, my goal is to be able to not give you my preference. My goal is to tell you what the literature says. And there's basically, if you take a look at the aggregate of men, there is kind of a downward shape parabolic distribution in terms of who ends up being perceived as more or less attractive cross-culturally. And so what you end up seeing is that this is reflected, though, in the media in terms of skinniness now being associated, interestingly, with social and economic advantage rather than poverty. I found this very interesting. When I used to go to India when I was a kid, right? So my father's from India. My mother's from New York, right? My father's from India. So when we used to go to India when I was a kid, there was just a tremendous amount of pride that husbands took in their wives being a bit larger, right? And it was seen as a sign that they were able to kind of provide for their wives. It was seen as a real matter of pride. And if you look historically, especially when you take a look at fine art, over literally the centuries, you will see women who are curvier, and this will be something where, these women are seen as, much, much more attractive in times where, economically speaking, there's kind of less to go around, as they would say, economically speaking, right? It's the same thing when you take a look, it's very interesting, at Playboy Playmates of the Year. If you track certain, and I'll make a video on this because I think it's really interesting. If you track, right, the Playmate model of the year, right, Playmate of the Year, and you take a look at kind of economic conditions, what you'll end up finding is that the Playmates of the Year tend to be curvier in years where there are economic slowdowns. I think that's like the most fascinating thing, right? Now, of course, all of this is a proxy. People don't know that that's why they're doing things or perceiving things as more or less attractive. They don't know that, right? But we end up seeing it if we look at the epidemiological data, kind of like the large, the zoomed out kind of data, right? And anyway, I just found it very interesting, right? But it's something where right now, we're in a bull market here in US, and so because of that, skinniness is really associated with social and economic advantage. And so in India, interestingly, as the decades have gone on since I was a kid, and now it is more and more every single year an industrialized, like leader, in the free world, right? I mean, it's just amazing where it is now. And so what happens, or what has happened, is that recently when I've gone back, I just went back last year. All of a sudden, when you take a look at ads in the media and these sorts of things, it's just like in the United States where skinniness is the thing that, you just see over and over again being associated with beauty. Because keep in mind, and when I say associated with beauty, what I mean is the classical conditioning element. This almost Pavlovian conditioning, right? Here's a beauty product and here's a thin woman, right? And these things kind of, being classically conditioned together. Right? Now, it's interesting because you have people on both sides of the debate here. This is a topic, obviously, that people can get very, very heated about, and it can go either way, right? And so, for example, you have some individuals who are body positivity activists, third wave feminism advocates. This is kind of, one side, right? And, will basically say that this is either, people, the glorification of being skinny is being, the tyrannical male patriarchy, which is just like, oh my God, right? Or on the other side, though, you also have people who go completely the other direction. So, for example, there was a book that came out by this professor named Dr. Nancy Etkoff, and the conclusion of the book is extremely controversial, right? So here's a direct quote from the book, right? It's extreme dieting suspends fertility by slowing down the aging of the ovaries as an unconscious strategy to delay having children until career or romantic ambitions have been met. Whoa, right? Talk about controversial. So, people are all over the spectrum here about, about skinniness, about obesity, about beauty levels, about the use of certain terms. Some people see it, like a very negative labeling or wanting to reclaim words like the word fat, the word skinny, etc. It's a very interesting time culturally to be able to see how these things are kind of being thrown around. But at the same time, the one thing that I want you to remember is that at the end of the day, the ideal, universally based on the literature, is that men's first choice in body type, it's curvy, medium weight, okay? And in terms of why underweight is not perceived as being particularly attractive, right, is that it can lead to temporary infertility, womb shrinkage, no period, and sex drive slowdown. So those are the two things to be able to take away from this message today. All right, everybody, thank you so much as always for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the information as well as the discussion today. Please do feel free to subscribe to our channel, hit that bell to get notifications when we post new original content. If you would like me to come and speak at your place of worship, it would be a real blessing to do that. Or if you're interested in one-on-one or group-based coaching, all of my coaching is evidence-based. This is it. I find too many people out there, they say that they are relationship coaches and these things. Nothing they say is based on the evidence base. It's basically just being a kind of rah-rah cheerleader for you, which of course is very important, don't get me wrong, but you need to point the person in the right direction. And there is nothing better to point you in the right direction, right, practically speaking, other than the peer-reviewed research literature, right? We can pray all day, every day for God to be able to send us somebody. And God honors our prayers, right? But God helps those who help themselves. And so it is critical that we take an active role. Perfect man, perfect woman isn't going to come knocking on your door, right? Would it be possible for God to do that? I believe that it would. Is it going to happen? You should assume that it is so unlikely that you need to take an active role here, okay? And we're going to talk about how to be able to build a plan together, you and me, right? Or part of our group, if you're interested in group-based coaching, to be able to get us where we need to be, okay? That's going to be our goal together. So feel free to contact me again via the website below, and we can chat about any of those topics that I just mentioned. Signing off, everybody. Again, God bless you. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Don't forget to get out there, take chances, and be your best self. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed that episode and you'd like to see more original content, then please do click on one of the links right here. I hope to see you in the next one.